The port of Brizahc is the southernmost settlement in Deuces. Its seaport seeing traffic between both Theta to the north as well as being the only port that connects to the mostly abandoned village of Kanaphia. Owing to its small size but large mercantile impact, the town is exceptionally wealthy. However, since Kanaphia is all but abandoned in modern times, there are no available charter ships that will take Avin's crew there. Gawain, however, tells the two that they can use his personal ship instead. Turns out prior to Gawain becoming the Sage of Strength, he was a rather famed naval captain, and has since passed the ship to his former sailors who are waiting for him at port now. While walking to the port, Avin spots Karamas hiding behind a stack of crates, playing hide and seek with some local children. The team pokes the great author, who seems to be more aloof than ever before. He tells Avin the exciting news. He is currently writing the finale of Laban the Swift. With inspiration needed more than ever, Avin drops off the newest points of his adventures and leaves Karamas to his work. To Avin's surprise, the crew waiting to greet them at the dock was none other than Thomas, alongside the legendary white gull, Planetos. Turns out this famed vessel was Gawain's ship during his seafaring days, and Thomas, its new captain, was formerly one of Gawain's sailors. With the crew already having prepared, the team sails off toward Kanaphia immediately. The sea route to Kanaphia would normally take 2 days, but the Planetos' unrivaled speed cuts that time down to only half a day or so. With fair weather and clear skies ahead, Avin spent some time reminiscing. The last time he was aboard the Planetos was back in Beloa, when he, Mile, and Conrad worked together to take down Fatima and rescue Emil. Compared to his current journey, these two events seemed worlds apart. Out of boredom, Thomas and Avin strike up a friendly chat, and Thomas asks Avin if he had ever heard about the Gagharv, which Avin denies. Thomas tells him that the Gagharv is a massive abyss over 1,000 kilometers in width, surrounded by countless whirlpools and maelstroms, located east of Alfilden. The Gagharv is the edge of the known world. No one knows what is on the other side of the Gagharv. Is it simply a vast emptiness, or perhaps a completely new world? In the centuries since its formation, countless sailors and explorers have tried to challenge the Gagharv, but none have ever come close to succeeding. Even Gawain in his youth had taken the Planetos to embark on his own journey, but was similarly unsuccessful. Being a sailor with an adventurous heart, Thomas had vowed to one day breach the Gagharv with the Planetos, no matter what it takes. As the two friends share their own goals and aspirations in life, Thomas remarks that perhaps when he does set out on his fateful journey, he'll invite Avin along as well. Their friendly conversation is interrupted by Rutus and Gawain, coming in with worried expressions. Despite the calm weather all around them, the Planetos is sailing right into an extremely turbulent stretch of sea. Shocked by such rocky waters in fair weather, the Planetos barrels straight into the violent wave as it threatens to rip the ship apart. As the Planetos is being ruthlessly battered, the crew knows Kanaphia is just beyond this disturbance, but trying to get there now may be a death sentence. Realizing that the source of this turbulence is unnatural, Gawain orders Thomas to turn the ship around and return to Brizahc for now. As the ship veers around, Thomas spots something out in the water, a man clasping to some wreckage drifting in the waves. Deciding to rescue the sinking man, the Planetos turns around while Avin and Thomas deploy a lifeboat to go after him. As they pull him aboard, however, Avin recognizes him. Haven't they met before? The castaway is rescued aboard as Avin, Rutus, and Gawain confirm that this was the same person they met in Vetter Isla, the mysterious man Michel that helped them power on the shrine before vanishing without a trace. Michel comes to and gets a handle on the situation, thanking the crew for the rescue. He explains his circumstance. He was sailing on a small rowboat on the western coast of Deuces before his boat was utterly wrecked, and he found himself being carried away by the waves until he was rescued here. Thomas is flabbergasted after hearing his story. The western coast of Deuces is right behind Cathedral, where Octum's barrier is erected. to sail so wantonly through essentially the headquarters of Octum's cult? Does he have a death wish? The crew recalls their previous meeting with Michel and his complete unfamiliarity with the religions and practices of Alfilden, combined with his strange accent and the fact that he has wandered into Octum's domain without a second thought, began to regard him with suspicions anew. Taking these factors into account, Gawain looks at Michel and deduces that he must be from a place outside of Alfilden, an assumption which Michel confirms, much to the shock of everyone else. As the ship docks in Brizahc, the mysterious man finally gives a proper introduction to Avin and crew. His name is Michel de Lap Haven, a magician hailing from the continent of Terrasville, a land northeast of Alfilden, beyond the Gagharv. Thomas is rocked by this revelation. There are completely new worlds beyond the Gagharv. Michel tells the team that he simply used a long-distance teleportation spell to bring him here in Alfilden. The team can't help but recognize Michel as a magician with unimaginable powers, considering how casual he is about casting spells that seem to defy belief. Michel tells the crew that he came to Alfilden for two reasons. First, much like the people of Alfilden, the ones who live in Terrasville has also wondered what lies beyond the Gagharv on their side, and Michel wanted to explore the world beyond for himself. Secondly, recent surges of dark energy pulsing from Alfilden can be felt as far away as Terrasville, and Michel felt compelled to investigate. When the Gagharv had first formed, the gods had been left behind on this continent, and the recent reawakening of Octum and the attempted revival of Bardus had caused the world outside to also react in response. Having seen parts of Alfilden for himself and hearing about Avin's deeds from the various cities, Michel learned about Avin's mission to reawaken Bardus to stand in opposition to the cult of Octum. Seeing as their goals are one and the same, the foreign magician gladly pledges his powers to Avin's cause and joins the party. The problem now turns to the unnatural waves blocking their way to Kanaphia. Given the otherwise calm weather, along with Michel's observations during his time adrift, Gawain surmises that the turbulence is not a naturally occurring storm, but rather an artificial disaster created by a disturbance in the continent's ley lines. No doubt another side effect caused by Octum's gradual resurrection into this world. Since the storm is not naturally occurring, the team will have to find another solution to deal with the ley line disturbance, perhaps by finding a way to attack the disturbance directly. Michel theorizes that a strong enough impact dealt directly to the ley lines could potentially restore balance, but the problem is how. Something like an explosive would perhaps be able to do it, except there's no way to detonate explosives underwater. Gawain comes up with a plan. East of Brizahc is a place known as Eiton Cave, a large mud pot where a unique jewel can be found. This jewel, known to the nobility as the Crimson Flame, is a large ruby containing a living ember inside, which is then usually adorned on jewelry and sold to the rich at ludicrous prices. Crimson flames grow in abundance in the mud pot of Eiton Cave, absorbing the natural elements in that environment to form and grow. Brizahc's ruling family regularly makes a fortune out of the mining and exporting of these crimson flames alongside their maritime trade. However, this jewel can be extremely dangerous. If overgrown due to being left in Eiton Cave for too long unattended, crimson flames become exponentially volatile and unstable. With the tiniest impact, an overgrown crimson flame about the size of a fist will explode, detonating with the force several times stronger than dynamite. The team decides to seek out the local duchess for permission to acquire an overgrown crimson flame to stabilize the ley lines, while Thomas heads off to prepare the Planetos to sail out again. Gawain takes the team to meet with Duchess Malabo, the current governess of Brizahc and an old personal friend. Eager to do her part in opposing the cult of Octum and fulfilling a favor to an old friend, Duchess Malabo is more than willing to let the team head into Eiton Cave. She tells them that recently a monster outbreak in the cave has caused Crimson Flame extraction to halt. And having left the cave alone for this much time, there surely must be 1 or 2 crimson flames somewhere in the mud pot that has grown to an unstable size. The team heads into the cave and start prowling around the mud pools, picking up a few crimson flames along the way, though the ones they found are quite small, ripe for selling at ludicrous prices to nobles, not so much the deadly explosive weapon they were looking for. However, when they arrived at the center of the cave, they found it. A crimson flame so large that it's poking out of the muddy surface, its flame dancing with extreme vigor, threatening to explode with the tiniest disturbance. Avin's team carefully surrounds the jewel and attempts to extract it, until a swarm of monsters pop out of the mud to ambush them. Having no choice but to take the fight, the team dispatches the monsters with surgical precision. The tiniest misstep during the fight would risk causing the crimson flame to explode, blowing not just them but the entire cave into oblivion. Miraculously, the fight was won with the crimson flame still undisturbed. Carefully pulling out the explosive jewel, the team gently escort it as they make their way out of the cave. And that's when disaster struck yet again. Another earthquake. This one is stronger and more violent than ever before. Tremors could be felt through the western realm, in Brizahc, in Valkid, all of Deuces. It seems Octum's slumber is about to come to an end. This massive earthquake rocks the tunnels of Eiton Cave, threatening to collapse the entire place on itself. Holding the crimson flame, Gawain, Michel, Avin, and Rutus sprint out just as the tunnels behind them fall apart. Except Rutus didn't make it. The rockfall trapped her inside the cave. Avin's mind goes blank, desperately calling for her names through the collapsed debris. Fortunately, Rutus's voice comes through. She is mostly unharmed, but there's no way out for her. The earthquake shows no sign of stopping, and the team cannot risk staying inside any longer. Rutus tells Avin's team to forget about her, take the crimson flame out of here and leave her behind, or they may all be trapped here. Avin refuses to even entertain that notion, but there's only one way to save Rutus. The crimson flame. It can blow away the debris and clear a path for her. Hearing this plan, Rutus begs for Avin to not do it. This is their only ticket to Kanaphia. If he throws it away here for her, their mission would fail. But her pleading for Avin to leave her behind falls on deaf ears. Without a second thought, Avin takes the overgrown crimson flame and throws it at the debris. The massive explosion did the trick. Rutus was freed and the team escapes Eiton Cave just as the entire place comes down around them, and the earthquake finally subsides. After their escape, the team checks up on each other to make sure everyone's unharmed, but Rutus remains solemnly silent. Seething with a quiet anger, she walks up to Avin and slapped him across the face. Rutus chastises Avin for his choice. That crimson flame was their only chance to calm the waters and bring the planetals into Kanaphia. Octum's reawakening is nigh, and perhaps during that quake, cultists are already encroaching upon Zar's shrine in Kanaphia to corrupt him like the other demigods. Avin's mission would be to forge the Elucion and break the barrier in Cathedral. Compared to all that they stand to lose, she was not worth the rescue. Avin admits that perhaps he did act too rashly. But faced with Rutus now, he sternly knows one thing to be absolutely true. If he was given a chance to take back his decision, he would have still used the Crimson Flame in a heartbeat. Gawain agrees with Avin, telling Rutus that had he opted to not throw the Crimson Flame, Gawain would be punishing Avin 1,000 times more harshly than what Rutus is doing now. He tells Rutus that the concept of victory at any cost is very much an ideal of the cult, but in truth, though their victory is of utmost importance, there is still such a thing as too much of a sacrifice. Avin tells Rutus that even though they will likely not be able to go to Kanaphia now, he doesn't regret a thing. she is a very important person to him, after all, and shouldn't speak so callously about sacrificing herself for the cause. His words stun Rutis, who quietly comes to her senses and apologizes to Avin. As the two youngsters make up, they now come together to face the consequences. The earthquake had collapsed Eiton Cave, and all they have now are a few small-sized crimson flames that could never be detonated. With no other leads for now, the team heads back to Brizahc and reports in to Duchess Malabo. When they re-enter Brizahc, however, they're immediately cornered by Jimenez, whose stress levels has gone through the roof. With the draft for the finale of Lab in the Swift 9, Karamis had vanished from Brizahc in the usual Karamis way. The team's attempts at calming Jimenez are fruitless, as he practically bounces from wall to wall in a ball of nervous energy. Leaving him to recover the author on his own, the team heads in to report. Malabo is thankful that the team returned unharmed after that catastrophic quake, and as a token of her thanks, passes along one of the smaller Crimson Flames to Avin's teams as a souvenir. The crew heads back to the harbor and regroups with Thomas, telling him about what had transpired. At this desperate hour, Michel hatches an idea to get through the rocky seas and passes it along to Gawain and Thomas. Deciding to give his plan a go, Thomas orders the Planetos to sail once more. Aboard the ship, Michel asks Avin to place the Crimson Flame on the deck, a small jewel roughly the size of a chicken egg. Michel lifts the jewel mid-air, asking both Rutis and Gawain to imbue it with their magic. Michel explains that if the growth of the Crimson Flame can be attributed to the natural elements found within the mud pots of Eiton Cave, then perhaps the energies of elemental magic can be forcefully injected into one to induce growth. Incredibly, his theory works, and the jewel expands before Avin's eyes, growing to a massive, unstable size before his eyes. The team praises Michel for his ingenuity and resourcefulness, and with no time to spare, the Planetos is once again coming up to the violent waves. Having already gotten a good feel on the ley line's pulse during his time adrift, Michel volunteers to go with Thomas in a small boat to detonate the Crimson Flame. Braving the difficult waters, Michel and Thomas steer their small boat right into the heart of the disturbance. Being battered on all sides and threatened to be turned overboard, Thomas's skill as a sailor is put to the ultimate test. Michel, putting all of his faith in Thomas's ability, maintains his composure and deploys the Crimson Flame, chanting his incantation to force its detonation deep underwater. Their plan is a rousing success, and the waves calm rapidly in the wake of the explosion. This daring moment served as a great bonding moment for Thomas and Michel, finding a kindred soul in the thrill of adventure and an eagerness to explore the unknown in each other. As the two men practically become best friends, the team sails on to Kanaphia with no further incident, and soon lands in the shadowed village. Thomas returns to the Planetos for repairs, wishing Avin's crew luck in recovering the final fragment of Bardus. Gawain tells the team that Zar's shrine is located just south of Kanaphia, inside a large cemetery known as the Sepulchrum. The problem comes back to Zar's protector, the person needed to open the way into the sanctum. Gawain, however, has noticeably become a lot sadder since landing in Kanaphia. Sullenly telling the crew to not worry about the protector for now, he asks the team to stop by the elder's house before they leave. On the way, Avin runs into an unexpected face in a secluded basement. The strange merchant that he and Emil encountered when they first reunited back in Baloa had set up shop here. The strange merchant recognizes Avin and asks him about the earrings he had bought and if his sister is doing okay. A question that Avin finds it difficult to answer. Sensing some distress, the merchant gives Avin some words of encouragement. He tells Avin that the pair of earrings he had bought has a magical property. When one wearer is in peril, the other pair will spontaneously shatter. The fact that Avon's half is still intact must mean that his sister is okay, wherever she is. Even though this is most likely just a sales pitch, the strange man's words do manage to suddenly make Avon feel a lot better. The team make their way to the Elder's house in Kanaphia, where they meet with Elder Madnam, as well as a local girl named Vinia. Gawain leads the team in and introduces everyone to each other, and tells them of his intent to visit Sepulchrum. Noting that this time of year had come again, Elder Madnam asks Vinia to go buy a bouquet of white flowers at the store and welcomes his guests in, though he has little to offer in the way of hospitality. Madnam tells Avon's team that Vinia is one of Madnam and Dominique's childhood friends who has lived in Kanaphia her whole life. This entire village, since the tragedy 15 years ago, has been cloaked in an eternal aura of sadness and trauma, like a demon from the past refusing to loosen its grip over this shadowed village. Gawain, with sorrow etched all across his face, quietly sits with Madnam, and finally tells the full story behind the tragedy of Kanaphia to Avin and his team. Dominique and Madnam were born and raised in the village of Kanaphia, and alongside other locals like Vinia, grew up together and had always been by each other's side. 20 years ago, when Madnam and Dominique both turned 16, they decided to leave Kanaphia and headed for Cathedral, joining the Church of Bardus. There, Madnam trained as a member of the Holy Guard under Gawain, and Dominique studied to be a sister of the church under the guidance of Ollesia. Under their tutelage, and owing to their bright dispositions, both Madnam and Dominique excelled in their respective paths, and this whole time were very much romantically involved with each other. Their lives together seemed perfect, their futures happy, until that day 15 years ago. When Madnam turned 20 years old, Dominique began hearing the voice of Durga, marking her as Durga's next daughter. Around this time, Belias had just defected from the Church of Bardus and went down his path of darkness toward leading the cult of Octum. Knowing that Belias is now targeting Dominique, Gawain and the now late Archbishop Asperius came up with a plan to shelter Dominique in Kanaphia for her own protection, so that she can be moved out of Cathedral and be averted from danger. Madnam would not let her go alone and left with Dominique as her personal bodyguard, but Belias learned of these plans. The instant Madnam and Dominique landed in Kanaphia, an elite squad of Octum's cultists emerged in the village to ambush them, intent on killing Madnam and bringing Dominique to Belias alive. Both Madnam and Dominique, devout believers and students of the church, held on as long as they could, fighting and hiding for their lives, holding fast to their faith that the church would send help. At that time, Gawain was already the commander of the Holy Guard, and he would have wasted no time to come to their rescue. But their distress message never made it out. The plea for help reached Brizahc and no further. The local bishop of Brizahc at the time was a corrupt man that only worked for his personal gain, a name that they all know too well by this point, Bishop Avarice. His corruption and incompetence in office meant that Madnam's distress call made it to Gawain far too late. When Gawain's forces finally received a message to come to Kanaphia, they arrived only to find Madnam holding Dominique's corpse in the middle of a concluded battle. In an attempt to block a fatal attack meant for Madnam, Dominique threw herself in front of him and gave her life for his. The cult, having also failed their mission by accidentally killing Durga's daughter, had already left the island. When Madnam spotted Gawain, he handed Dominique's corpse to him and left the scene without a word. In the 15 years since, Madnam became the state that Avon's team knew him as now, a cold, brutal killer that slaughters corrupt members of the church and the cult alike without a shred of mercy. He has long since abandoned his own humanity in his grief. Kanaphia itself has never recovered from that tragedy, and since then the entire village has been cast in a deep sadness that seems to never fade, as well as a total disdain for Bardus itself. As the story concludes, Vinia returned to Gawain with a fresh bouquet. Gawain sorrowfully tells the team that every year he comes here to lay flowers at Dominique's grave, without Madnam. This year, would be no different. Inviting the team to join him, the crew decides to pay a visit to Dominique's final resting place, south of Kanaphia, in Sepulchrum, beside the place where Tsar's sanctum lies. Their path to Sepulchrum takes them through the Road of Parting, a small dirt path of quaint reflection, where people walk as they reminisce about the memories of their lost loved ones. Gawain tells Avon's party that in the 15 years since the tragedy, the light rain that coats this area has never stopped, adding to the aura of gloom, as if the sky itself is still weeping over that fateful day in the past. Sepulchrum is no different, a large cemetery shrouded in countless deaths, each site marking the finality of someone precious to another. Dominique was interred at the highest hill in this place, beside a large tombstone commemorating her life. Standing before her gravestone, Gawain and team lay down the bouquet. With another year having passed since they last met, as the team each passes a prayer to Dominique, Gawain quietly asks her to watch over Madnam, so that he may be guided back to the light. Beside the grave, the cold, cynical voice of Madnam cuts through the air. The team rushes to confront him, but Madnam declares that this time, he is here only for Avin. With his cold, piercing glare, Madnam once again asks Avin the same question that he did in Benakia Monastery. Does he truly understand the implications of reawakening Bardus? Avin confesses that he doesn't understand, but perhaps he no longer needs to. After all, Avin was never a believer in Bardus, nor does he truly have a personal reason to despise Octum itself. The actions he's taken up until now have all been in the name of rescuing Emil and freeing Miel, and acting simply to protect his bonds with his friends and family. Madnam scoffs at this answer, telling Avin that human bonds are simply helpless in the face of divine power. On that day 15 years ago, when he lost Dominique, this became clear as day to him. Deciding to test if Avin truly has the power to protect the bonds he's cherished, Madnam draws his blade and demands Avin do the same. If Avin loses, he must surrender the 5 fragments of Bardus to Madnam. But if he wins, Madnam will gladly open the path to Tsar's sanctum for him, revealing to a shocked Avin that he is the protector of Tsar. Faced with the man who also had his fate inexorably tied to a daughter of Durga, Avin, despite the furious protests of Rutis and Gawain, jumps down and meets him in combat. Faced with his former disciple and the child he helped raise, Gawain curses both of their stubbornness. Taking Rutis and Michel, they follow along, knowing that Avin is no match for Madnam. Confronting Madnam, Avin questions why he is still carrying on his bloody rampage. These senseless killings would not bring Dominique back, nor would it make her happy in the afterlife. Madnam tells him that Dominique died purely to protect him. Even in the final moments of her life, she smiled while passing away in his arms. Dominique was special. Someone like her will never appear again. And so he vowed to end the yoke that the gods have placed over mankind. Octum, Bardus, Durga, they're all the same, deities whose charge given to mankind has only led to suffering. Madnam declares his intent to defeat Avin, take the fragments, and smash them all to pieces to end the legacy of the gods. Avin pushes Madnam back with a desperate roar. There is no way he will let Madnam destroy the fragments. Imbued in those pieces are not just the powers of Bardus, but also the hopes and dreams of Miel, Emil, Rutis, Gawain, all the friends he's made along the way. Compared to the still dormant power of Bardus, these bonds mean more to him than Madnam can ever realize. At this point, simple words between the two are no longer enough. Their differences, despite being aimed at the same goal, can only be settled through blades. Staring each other down, they prepare for the fateful clash. And Avin collapses before Madnam. His strength, although admirable, is still nowhere near the demonic swordsman's caliber. Madnam takes the 5 fragments of Bardus from Avin, but finds himself reeling, Somehow, that fight had managed to fatigue him more than initially planned. Madnam descends Tsar's sanctum while Avon's friends run to his side. Picking himself up from the ground, Avin remains determined to confront Madnam. The duel is not over yet. Approaching the entrance to Tsar's sanctum, Madnam communes with his contracted demigod. He announces to Tsar his plans to destroy the fragments and then relieve himself of his duty to protect Tsar, and thus forcing the gods back into slumber so that they can never interfere with humanity again. As the door to Tsar's sanctum swings open, Madnam is suddenly confronted by Borgeid. The foul magician had been watching the confrontation the entire time. Knowing Madnam is still fatigued after his fight with Avin, and had just opened the door to Tsar for him, Borgeid found it a perfect opportunity to dispatch the bloody butcher before him for good. Finding himself forced into another duel, Madnam goes all out against Borgeid. Though given his weakened condition, although he was able to initially keep pace against Borgeid's ruthless barrage and even land a hit against him, Borgeid seems absolutely unfazed. His powers only increasing, Madnam found himself quickly overpowered and cut off. Borgeid eventually lands a clean hit on him and wounds Madnam, forcing him still. Deciding now would be the perfect time to taunt him, Borgeid gloats and decides to reveal a devastating secret. 15 years ago, Borgeid, who had just joined the cult, was involved in the ambush mission in Kanaphia, and in fact, the person who killed Dominique was him. For the first time in 15 years, this was the only thing that has made Madnam lose his composure. Remarking on the irony that Dominique died for Madnam only for him to go and forsake his faith to the church, Borgeid mocks Dominique's name from beyond the grave, as Madnam leaps at Borgeid with wild abandon like a crazed animal. There was no more technique and deliberation in Madnam. Borgeid easily overpowers him and unleashes a devastating blow, nearly fatally wounding him. As Borgeid continues his ruthless barrage on a dying Madnam, he slings insults and magic alike, until finally, Avin's team intervenes. Stopping his attacks for now, Borgeid leaves the scene, descending Tsar's sanctum to begin his ritual to corrupt the deity of blazing flames. As Avin's team crowds around a rapidly fading Madnam, he mutters at his inability. All it took was the mention of Dominique to make him lose his cool. Handing the fragments back to Avin, Madnam begs the team to stop Borgeid, save Tsar, before it's too late. And then he falls unconscious. Gawain reassures the team that Madnam will be fine. He knows his disciple better than anyone. An attack like this wouldn't be the end of this tenacious man. A more important duty awaits them. The crew quickly charges into Tsar's sanctum in pursuit of Borgeid, hoping that this time they can reach the demigod before it is too late. In the short time he was away, Borgeid has made a lot of headway into the shrine. Even though Avin's team is in hot pursuit, they only manage to catch up to him inside the inner sanctum, and fortunately, his ritual to corrupt Tsar had not finished. Confronting the Dark Sorcerer, Avin's team is determined to defeat him here, once and for all. Borgeid, however, is undeterred. He suddenly powers up in front of Avin's team. He tells them that the doors to the underworld has already been pried open, confirming the team's fears that the earthquake felt in Brizahc does indeed herald the beginning of the end. Belias is beneath Cathedral, using Emil's latent powers as Durga's chosen to raise Octum as they speak. Demonstrating his newfound powers, the battle to save Tsar breaks out in the Sanctum. Borgeid, as Belias' right-hand man, second in command of the Cult of Octum, now holds insurmountable power that surpasses even Michel's talents. The battle against Borgeid is a desperate fight for survival, their own attacks barely able to scratch him. Chipping away at Borgeid along with his retinue of demonic effigies, the team managed to just barely prevail against his onslaught to finally take him down, but he is not out. Borgeid suddenly gets back up and unleashes magic deadlier than ever before, with Avin and Rutis barely able to get out of the way. Gawain and Michel rush in to defend, but the intensity of Borgeid's attacks have only increased. Octum's reawakening has given Borgeid an endless supply of power. In this state of inexhaustibility, he can keep going forever. Faced with this barrage, the team is unable to gain ground and are barely holding on. But once again, Madnam comes to their rescue. Though he is grievously wounded, he still presses forward, determined to kill Borgeid. Watching Madnam stumble forward, Borgeid is dismissive of his efforts. Charging up another spell, Borgeid launches it at Madnam, but shockingly, he gets through completely unscathed as the spell seemingly dissipates around him. Madnam continues to press on, tanking through Borgeid's barrage like it's nothing. This sight unnerves Borgeid. The powers given to him by Octum seem to be ineffective. Madnam snidely reaches into his pocket and produces a crimson flame before the team's eyes. It had absorbed the magic from all of Borgeid's attacks and has now grown to an extreme size, twice as big as the one Avin's team used to reach Kanaphia. Madnam runs forward and grapples Borgeid to ensure that the sorcerer cannot flee by teleporting away. Sudden panic overwhelms Borgeid, realizing that the crimson flame is going to kill him, and Madnam is determined to die with him. Avin's crew realize his intentions and plead for him to stop, but Madnam has already made his choice. He's been carrying this crimson flame with him for 15 years. It was originally going to be made into a ring for Dominique to be given to her on her birthday. Though Madnam confesses that the thought of giving this crimson flame to Borgeid instead of Dominique disgusts him, it seems like a fitting end for both of them. Turning to address Avin, Madnam tells him that despite his immaturity, it's up to Avin now to fulfill his last wish, to rescue Emil from her ill fate, to not tread the same path as him, and to make sure those burdened with the destiny of gods can be freed from these shackles, so that tragedies like Kanaphia can never happen again. Then, amidst the furious cries of Avin and Gawain pleading for him to stop, the jewel detonates. There's nothing left of the aftermath. Borgeid is dead, and Madnam sacrificed his life to ensure it. Faced with this sudden loss, Avin and Gawain grieve loudly at Madnam's death. Gawain looks away, cursing at himself. First Dominique, and now Madnam. He's no sage, just some useless old man who can't protect those he cherished. Rutis and Michel try their best to comfort the two. Michel remarks that as the crimson flame detonated, he saw Madnam smile. The same smile that perhaps Dominique wore in her final moments 15 years ago. Maybe in that moment he finally understood the meaning behind her smile. That desire and drive to protect another, even at the cost of their own lives. The team presses onward through the inner sanctum, and finally meet face to face with the final demigod, Tsar, the deity of blazing flames, uncorrupted thanks to their efforts. Having seen Avin's adventures through Madnam's eyes, Tsar has come to believe in Avin just as Madnam did. Manifesting the sixth fragment, the lightweight left leg of Bardus, is Pied. He gives it to Avin, along with the blessings of the fire spirits. With all the fragments assembled and the blade of prophecies in his hand, Tsar channels his divine right on behalf of Durga and tells Avin that he can perform the ritual to forge the Elucion, here and now. The blade forged using human hands and the divine powers imbued within the fragments, combining the strength of mankind and deities, the might to shatter the darkness shall now once again descend onto this world. First, the head of Bardus, that which harbors infinite wisdom, Cabeza. Second, the body of Bardus, that which stands loftily above all, Kerupo. Third, the right arm of Bardus, that which contains endless might, Delabora. Fourth, the left arm of Bardus, that which nurtures all life, Ispora. Fifth, the right leg of Bardus, that which is ever dexterous, Delapied. Sixth, the left leg of Bardus, that which falls without a sound, Ispied. And finally, the blade forged with mirage metal through human hands to become the vessel of divine light, so that Bardus' power may once again grace this land. The forging is complete, the imbued holy sword brimming with Bardus' light. Its name, as deemed in prophecy, shall be the Elucion. With his duty fulfilled, Tsar returns to his eternal slumber, and Avin walks forward to claim the holy blade Elucion with his own hands. The once lightweight blade suddenly seemed heavier, with the power of Bardus now sleeping within. This is it. The barrier around Cathedral can finally be shattered using this weapon, and with it, Avin's journey is nearing its end. The team somberly walks out of Tsar's sanctum, still mourning over the loss of Madnam. As they leave the shrine and return above ground, they're greeted by an incredible sight. The clouds above Sepulchrum have cleared, and a warm layer of sunlight is coating the entire cemetery. Before returning to Kanaphia, the team stops by Dominique's grave once again to say their farewells. With everything that has happened, Avin and Rutis offer to return here with Gawain when their journey is done, but next time, they would offer 2 sets of flowers instead of 1. As the team leaves, Gawain can't help but remark, though the paths they took were different, Dominique's will was passed on to Madnam, and now it is up to Avin to continue carrying the torch so that their dreams of peace can be realized. No longer trapped by his own sorrow, Gawain too has found the strength to carry on and to put the tragedy behind him at last. As the team leaves Sepulchrum, the spirits of Madnam and Dominique, reunited in the afterlife, appear to watch them on. For the first time in 15 years, the rain has stopped along the road of parting, and even the eternal shadow over Kanaphia village has lifted. The team visits Malam and Vinia before setting off. It seems that with Madnam's sacrifice, the tragedy of 15 years past has finally concluded, and the village can finally start moving on. Triumphantly holding the Elucion in his hand, Avin's crew return to Thomas as they all collectively marvel over the blade. With the final conflict drawing near, they board the Planetos and sail back to Deuces, in full preparation for the imminent conflict. Thanks to the sacrifice of the man who had gone down the path of a demon, Avin had finally collected all of the fragments of Bardus. The journey he had taken was long and tumultuous, and perhaps this blade would have never been forged without the help of his friends. Now, with the Sage of Strength, the foreign magician, and the beautiful maiden who has sworn her path to Avin's, he is no longer lost and confused. In the name of saving his irreplaceable loved ones, Avin's heart has already charged headlong into the shadowed land of Cathedral.